On today's episode of the Retro Gamers podcast, my co-host is Jonathan Pratt from Capital Region Electronics Recycling. We talk about the new Terminator 2D No Fate game trailer and our personal favorite story puzzlers. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Retro Gamers podcast. This is episode 405. We're at 405. Anthony here, as always. And this week, co-hosting with me is my friend Jonathan. Jonathan, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been a while. 367 was the recycling discussion. I can't believe it's been that long, but here we are.
Holy cow, it's been almost 40 episodes.
Yeah.
Jeez, time flies a little too quickly. But how are things going, man? What have you been up to these last 40 episodes, so to speak?
Just working. Had a few setbacks with day job stuff and business stuff, and dealing with family and kids. So trying to fit in as much gaming as possible, but sometimes life gets in the way, and you just kind of have to squeak it in where you can.
Yes, life gets in the way, but as Jurassic Park taught us, life also finds a way. So
correct.
But how's everything going with the recycling business?
It's good, yeah. This time of year it's slow, so I end up setting up different events throughout the year, starting in April. But this is sort of the logistics season.
Right.
To set stuff up, and hopefully things go smoothly this year. You never know.
No, things are always unpredictable, but at least you get a good chunk of time to set everything up for the year. That's a nice thing to have.
Yeah, it's a good 3-4 months of relative silence, and just got to use that time wisely.
All right, very cool. Well, again, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you back. As you know, John was just here recently as well. Your other cohort,
other John, yeah.
The other John, yes, John and John. We were talking about personal game connections on the last episode. I think we got a good topic this week, which we'll get to in a little bit. But first, as I always like to do when we start a show, is since this is a retro gaming podcast, and I try to get to this immediately, is just what have you been playing recently, like retro wise?
Retro gaming wise, I haven't really been tapping into my retro stash. I've been trying to get through the backlog of there's a pile of Switch games I'm looking at off camera. There's like 15, 20 games that I bought.
Okay.
That I simply haven't had time to, really get into. I've been buying, as I bought Clock Tower.
Yep.
Been waiting to get into that. I bought the re-release of Star Wars Dark Forces.
Oh, nice.
Which is excellent, by the way. If you haven't played the original, they touched it up in the Switch version. It looks really good.
All right, cool.
I try to play on my TV whenever my son isn't. He basically stole my copy of Tears of the Kingdom, and as I mentioned in the last episode, he's just Zelda obsessed, and
nice.
So, that's basically it. I did pick up. They re-released Planescape Torment and Icewind.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you're into the D&D stuff, but that's on my list.
All right.
Just trying to get through the queue, mostly modern stuff.
All right, cool. Well, we had a D&D episode a few weeks ago, actually. So
Yep.
Yeah, the D&D games I'm way behind on. And I tried getting into recently with a friend of mine. It was like maybe a year ago. I tried getting into Diablo again. And I bought Diablo 3. I didn't buy 4, but I bought Diablo 3 and we played it for a little while online together, and then it just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
They don't feel to have like the newer ones, I guess, don't seem to have I don't know. They don't have the same punch for me anymore. They don't grab me like the old ones did.
I have to confess, the only two I've played are the first and the second one.
Okay.
And back in the day, it was one of the few games that my computer would actually run. It was a bargain basement compact Presario that you could get at Best Buy.
Mm-hmm.
And it had like a 2x CD-ROM drive, which is like the
oh geez.
And
I don't remember. Well, I remember. I'm sure my first computer might have had that, but like I always remember the quad speed CD-ROM. Like that's when you were starting to get into like the really good stuff. Um, but all right, cool. Well, you know what? There's nothing wrong with playing mod stuff. Have you played Echoes of Wisdom yet?
no, not yet.
Okay.
I thought about getting it. I wasn't too impressed with Link's Awakening. I guess I'm not
Uh,
into that style of Zelda.
okay.
Uh, I'm spoiled, with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like those are two excellent games.
They
Uh,
really are. The whole open world thing definitely changed the dynamic.
yeah, definitely, and, yeah, arguably the two best Zelda games made. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I like the art style, but maybe not the gameplay as much. So it's kind of been on the back burner for me.
Okay, no problem. I mean, it's a fun game to get through. I did play through. It's a fun game to get through. It's inventive. But yeah, I mean, completely different style from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. So,
Yeah,
all right, cool. All right. So, you've been sticking to modern. I've actually been doing more retro lately, which obviously should be normal for me because of the podcast.
sure.
But I always get caught up playing stuff like Dead by Daylight and like more current stuff.
Yeah,
I started Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and that's been getting some of my attention. But the last couple of weeks, actually, I've really been kind of diving into the retro stuff. And I don't know if it was like the personal game connections episode that made me start thinking about things. But last week, I posted a full playthrough of The Seventh Guest on
nice.
PC. And that's one of my go-to games. Like when I want to play something just to feel the nostalgia and just to play through something completely, I have that game memorized.
Yeah,
So I did a full playthrough of that and I posted it online and that was really fun. And we'll talk more about that game later because it's on my list for the topic. And then
sure.
and then the other one that I was playing that I've actually never played it before outside of renting it, and I've definitely never beaten it. And it's Super Castlevania 4 on the
Okay,
Super Nintendo.
Nintendo. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the Castlevania Anniversary Collection on my PS5, and I was thinking about the Castlevania series recently because I threw up a cheat for Bloodlines a week or two ago. And it just made me want to go into the collection. And I went in there, and as I was scrolling through all of the games, I was like, you know what? I was like, I don't remember the last time I played Super Castlevania 4, and I never owned it when it came out. So I just wanted to play through it, and I think I'm close to the end. I'm in the castle. Like, because what I like about that one is a lot of the levels before you even get to the castle, you're just kind of going through the town,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Like the map takes you through the town before you get to the castle, so it's not all castle. But I think I'm on like one of like the last two or three levels, and it's been really, really fun. Easier than most Castlevania games to start, but the challenge has started to kick up now. So I'm definitely doing a lot of save states.
Yeah, Super Castlevania 4, I think technically is a remaster of the original Castlevania
Hmm.
for the NES, and they did everything right. The backdrops are awesome. The platforming is better. The You've got the rotating rooms in the castle, which I don't know if you've encountered that yet.
I did.
You can whip the whip 360
Yep.
is you can't do in a lot of the other games. Bloodlines is notorious for not having that.
Hmm.
Um, Bloodlines as well. I mean, it's a good platforming game, but you also have characters in that game that aren't part of the series, right? You're not playing as a Belmont or Alucard or whatever.
Yep.
Um, but Dracula X, if you ever get a chance to play that or afford it, that's like a $1,500 game. It's ridiculous. But
Well,
same thing. You're kind of going through the town in the beginning.
yeah, but is Dracula X on one of the collections that came out? Not the current one, but the one that came out with Rondo of Blood. Didn't it have
Yeah,
Dracula X on it? Yeah.
yeah. I can't remember which compilation. I know the PSP one had Rondo of Blood on it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I can't remember either, but I know that there are ways to get it without having to, you know, pay through the nose for the original copy, which is good.
but I'm that kind of psycho. I like to have the original title,
Oh no,
and
I'm with you on that.
and it, and along with that, I want to have the original box and manual. So
Same.
So to have the game, complete in box will cost you a couple $1,000s probably.
Yeah, so which is why I have relented. Like there are definitely games I have to relent on because just price wise, it's just out of the market for me. I don't know how much you've been keeping up with uh, in terms of retro news out there, but just have a few bits that I wanted to touch on. One is actually a new game that I want to discuss, and I posted this on Facebook, but I saw this announcement that there is a new Terminator 2 game coming out. I don't know if you saw this, but it's called Terminator 2D No Fate,
Okay.
and it looks amazing. It's a 2D, it's basically a 2D platformer,
Okay.
and it
Yeah.
goes through the entire Terminator 2 movie as a game. Looks great. The trailer is up and available to watch, and it hits on a lot of the key moments in the game, like when the Terminator shows up and is in the bar,
Yep.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator, and then when Sarah Connor is in the mental institution. Like they have clips of all of these things.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, so 16-bit platformer. It kind of reminds me of last October. I bought a game for Halloween. It was Halloween and Evil Dead.
Okay. Yep.
Same exact style. Um, and this game looks like it's playing right off of that. Looks really good. It's coming out September 5th. It'll be on PS5, PS4, Nintendo Switch, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and PC via Steam and the Epic's Game Store.
Good
Uh,
stuff.
yeah, so it looks really cool. Highly recommend checking it out. Another, this is actually a compilation series coming out, but do you remember the Gex trilogy games?
Yeah, I do.
All right. I never played them, but the original Gex just turned, I think, 25 years old
Yeah.
last week. Yeah, I think it was on the February 24th. And there was a trailer posted a few days ago with the Gex trilogy trailer. So it's coming out on the Switch summer 2005. It's going to have the original. I'm sorry, it's 30 years old. Whew, wow.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, PS1 it came out, so yeah.
yeah, the original platformer was in 95. Gex was 1995, the original 2D. So the trilogy's coming out this summer on Switch. It's going to be Gex Enter the Gecko, and Gex 3 Deep Cover Gecko. Those were the three games that came out. You can buy a physical copy at limited run. I think it's limited run. Yeah. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. Not a physical copy. It's only going to be digital. But yeah, so if you're a Gex fan, you can go grab that this summer. A few other things. This was there were a couple of sad things to note. One is with the Switch Online platform. I don't know if you saw this, but for the first time, Nintendo is pulling a game from their library on the Switch Online.
Which one?
Well, oddly enough, it's only the Japanese version. It's Super Formation Soccer.
Huh.
Now, not a big deal. Super Soccer, which is the American version, will still be available on Switch Online.
What's the
But
reasoning for pulling the Japanese one?
I think the issue is with the actual company that published it, which was Spike Chunsoft in Japan. There must be either like a deal fell through or whatever it is, so they're pulling the game, which again isn't the end of the world, but it kind of all when I see things like that, it always reminds me of why I'm so adamant about having physical copies of games because especially with Nintendo, when they pull something, it's not like you can go buy it in the store or anything like that. When they pull it, it's like the old Disney motto, like MO,
Yeah.
when they would release a VHS tape and then they would warn you, buy it now before it goes in the vault because you'll never be able to own it, to get it again. The Retro Gamers Podcast is brought to you by Old School Gamer Magazine. Sign up for as little as $20 per year for 6 issues that include feature articles, interviews with retro programmers, new and old product reviews, and more. If you look carefully, you'll even see an article or two penned by yours truly. You can head over to oldschoolgamermagazine.com/retrogamerspodcast and sign up so they know where you heard about it. Old School Gamer is dedicated to you, the old school retro gamers from the arcades to your home. Now we're going to get into the actual topic of the show. And John, I know I gave you a few different options, and I'm really happy you picked this one because it's a topic near and dear to my heart. It's really what uh, kickstarted my love of this style of games on actually the PC back in the 90s when I first got my PC. And we're going to be talking about our favorite story puzzler games. Now, I don't think there's necessarily a actual genre called story puzzlers, but I wanted to be a little bit specific with the description because a lot of these games are considered like point and click games, but then when you talk about point and click games, you can break it out. There are point and click adventure games, there are point and click strategy games, so on and so forth. The ones I wanted to focus on, or that we're going to focus on, are actual puzzle games that have a story element to them. And as you solve the puzzles, you advance the story through it. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier, like Seventh Guest would be an example in my head of like a story puzzler. So, John, like, what's your history like with these types of games?
I played a fair number of them in the late 90s, early 2000s when I started using computers in earnest, and we actually had one in the home. Um, to be honest, I've played a lot more console games than I have, PC titles, but um, I'm all over the map with regard to, my taste. I'm into survival horror, generally anything that's kind of dark.
Mhm.
Uh, so some of these games on the list that I have are going to be reflective of that. Um, but yeah, I've played a fair number of them.
All right, cool. Yeah, and mine too, like when I was making my list, I was like I was drawing lines in places I wasn't expecting to, where I'm like, oh no, you know what? There's more action element to that one. So I don't know what to do with that. And one of the other things I thought we can do is as I always do when we talk topics is I want to stick to retro, but then there are always a couple of um there are a couple of like current games that I feel like I am compelled to mention. So I thought what we can do is like I don't know if you have any on your list. Like I've compiled the list. I have a couple of honorable mentions that I wanted to bring up from more modern consoles. And the first one that I wanted to mention, and this one I was obsessed with when a friend of mine that I played Dead by Daylight with told me about this game. He's like, have you played The Witness yet? And I'm like, no. And once he introduced it to me, I was hooked. It's a very, very, um, I mean, the concept of it is a simple game. You're on this island. It's first person, which is normally not my style, but because it's just a puzzle game, I can handle it. Like I can't do first person shooters, they give me headaches. But this one, you're just walking around an island, and on the island are different series of puzzles. And as you approach the puzzles, you get like an easy version of a puzzle, and then they get progressively harder. Same style puzzle, but get progressively harder. So there's no instruction in the game that tells you how to solve the puzzles. The puzzles actually teach you how to solve the next puzzle, which is more difficult than the previous one. And I thought that was a really cool and clever way to go about a puzzle game. And as you go on the island, you're unlocking different things that open up different areas. And as you're going through it as well, you're coming across audio and video of different like philosophical discussions and questions about the universe type of thing. It's very heady, and I really enjoyed just kind of the ambiance of the walking around the island while solving these puzzles and then hearing all of these different theories on, human existence and things like that. It was just really, really cool.
Yeah, I never played that. I've heard good things about it. Um, I have a couple honorable mentions that are kind of in the same vein.
Similar like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you got?
So number one on the list is Kentucky Route Zero.
Oh,
Uh,
I've never heard of that.
yeah, it's a limited run game. Annapurna put it out, and the only thing I can say about it is if David Lynch made a video game,
Mhm.
this is what would come out the other side.
Oh, okay. Well,
There's
I'm writing that down right now.
um, the game contains no action. It's literally dialogue driven story,
Okay.
and but it gets real bizarre. Like there's several acts. On the face of it, you're just a delivery guy trying to deliver an antique to an address on Kentucky Route Zero. And you quickly find out through talking to people and interacting with all manner of bizarre things, ghosts and apparitions and things, that this, you begin to question if the route actually exists. And you meet people, help them in their quests. And by the end of it, I won't ruin it for you if you're actually going to sit through it. But
No,
um,
I'm very intrigued. The minute you said David Lynch, I'm like, okay, I'm all in. What is this?
very, very psychological kind of game. Um, you know, just the description on the back, I'll regale. Um,
Okay.
this software has been thoroughly inspected by the Department of the Real and is known to contain utility bills, barns, workplace injuries, airplanes, wage theft, television repair, art, paperwork, slide projectors, and it just goes on. It's very, very strange. At a certain point in the game, you find yourself at like a central bureaucracy, and in order to fulfill the request of trying to figure out where this address is, you need to find a certain form,
Okay.
and you go to three different places, and it's you finally get the it's weird. It's weird, but I recommend it. And the story will, as weird as it is, you'll be sitting in. Just strap yourself in.
Okay. All right, cool. That's definitely one I would want to play. Another one that I had on my honorable mention list. This one I played if you I don't remember when I played it. It may have been like 3 years ago. I don't know, but it popped in my head. The game is called Hue, just Hue. And I don't know if you've seen this one, but it's a puzzle game where it's kind of set up like a 2D platformer in a way, like with the levels you go through.
Yeah,
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the story is kind of like you're trying to find your way back home, um, or you're trying to find out what happened with your home. Like there's a whole there's the story-based element there is cool, but is good. But the concept of the puzzles are interesting because what happens is you change the color of the background that you're playing, and it's they're very like basic colors. So it's like red, blue, green, orange, purple, like that.
okay,
And you start simple with like one color, and once you get through that board, um, you you unlock another color, and then you're cycling through two different colors. And what happens is when you cycle through the colors on the level, things appear and disappear on the board. So in other words, like if there's a big pit in front of you and you can't cross it because there's no platform, if you change the background color to blue, all of a sudden like a red platform appears, and now you can jump on the platform to get over the pit.
nice.
And obviously as you go through it, the puzzles get harder to get you through the level. And the more colors you get, the more you have to cycle through it. And then it becomes sometimes like a timing thing where it's like you're like jumping and you got to change the color in order to get to the next platform, so on and so forth.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm simplifying it a lot, but it was just really, really fun and a very unique way to approach a puzzle game.
yeah.
So that one's definitely one I always I like to recommend to friends when they're like, I want a good puzzle game. I'm like, Hue has got such a simple concept, but an actual challenging game.
Nice. Yeah, that kind of reminds me. There was a shooter back in the day called Ikaruga,
Yep,
and
I've heard of that.
so you can phase shift your ship between red and blue, and when you're red, you shoot red bullets. When you're blue, you shoot blue bullets. And when you color shift, you can only hit light colored objects. So you have to constantly like phase shift your ship
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
Different concept. You're not platforming or anything, but kind of reminds me of that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that seems like the first person version of it, sort
Yeah.
of. All right, very.
My other honorable mention is Alien Isolation. Um,
Yep.
it's you can pick it up for almost no money these days.
Hmm.
Um, as a huge Alien fan, um, I want to like every Alien game that comes out, and for the most part,
You can't, man.
they're hot garbage.
Yes.
This is one that they actually got right. Um, it's a game that demands to be played with all the lights off and with headphones on.
Hmm.
The story is simple. You go to a space station, you're trying to find out what happened to your mom. Your mom's Ellen Ripley. And as soon as you get there, stuff is just not right. Come to find out there's an alien on board, and you know, um, it's survival horror elements to it. The story, it's there. Highly recommended. You can get it for like $20.
Yeah, I have a copy. I have a copy of this. I don't know what console I have it on, but what I love about it is that it's essentially they figured out a way to take the first Alien movie and make it into a game where it's like a
Yeah,
survival horror game and you're the protagonist. It doesn't follow the original movie story, but it captures it so well. I've played some of it. I haven't played all the way through it. I played some of it, but this is one of those games where I'll put it in that category of like when I played Resident Evil the first time, where I did not expect to be so uh tense playing it. Like you really do feel like the intensity of it when you're playing. It's great.
yeah, for sure.
So yeah,
Um,
that is a good one, and I guess that would be a bit of a story puzzler. I know it's a survival horror, but I can because you're not really fighting.
no, I mean, so the enemies. I mean, you can kill the androids, but you can't kill the alien.
Yeah.
So most of the time, you're just hiding out, waiting for it to go, so that you can access the next area. And it's not. I mean, there are some puzzles, but not. You're basically just trying to find keys to open doors,
Hmm.
more than anything. But it's more of an atmospheric story driven game.
Yeah, and like you said, it accomplishes it really, really well.
Yep.
But okay, all right. So some good honorable mentions. Let's go retro now, um, with the list. So I'm going to turn it to you as the as my guest co-host for this week. So retro wise, what's the first one that you threw on your list? Like when we talked about this topic, what was the first one that came to mind?
So your description of the topic literally said story puzzlers and in parentheses Myst.
Hmm.
So my mind initially went to, what are games that play like Myst?
Hmm.
You know, um, and the first ones that come to mind, my first pick is going to be two games. Um, I have to mention D, and
Ah,
I have to mention Enemy Zero.
okay.
Um, the reason I picked those two is because not only are they the games that play the most like D or like Myst, but they're also made by the same guy, Kenji Eno.
Okay.
And uh, D, it's kind of a rough ride. It's very slow paced. If you're annoyed by the door opening animations in Resident Evil, this is even slower than that, and you're timed. So for the first couple of tries playing D, you're gonna throw it across the room.
Hmm.
But first person, you press up on the controller, you move one space. You press left, you turn west. You press right, you turn east. Um, until you get to a spot where you can interact with, um, a puzzle. Um, Enemy Zero, kind of obscure game on the Sega Saturn. It came out toward the end of its life. But you're on a spaceship. Stuff hits the fan. There's now an alien on board, and it's invisible. And so you have to use the sound. It makes a distinct sound.
Hmm.
Um, but again, you're interacting with terminals to open doors. You get an energy weapon that it takes time to charge, and you don't always hit the alien, and it will kill you. Um, but this Kenji Eno guy, still doing a little bit of research on him. He was more of an artist and a composer than he was a video game developer. So the art style in these games is above and beyond. Um, but story puzzlers, those are first on my list. Just
Okay.
be aware that D, especially, you have to be 7.5 feet to ride this ride. Um,
Hmm.
Huge barrier to entry, but if you're gonna play it, just stick with it.
Yeah. Well, and from D we wound up with Clock Tower. So
Yep. D actually came out a year before Resident Evil, so Clock Tower was I think a year after,
yeah.
uh, but in that same window.
Yeah. But yeah, D was one of those games that I did not have when it first came out. I completely missed it. I only learned about D when I found out that it was kind of sort of a prequel to Clock Tower.
Yeah,
So, and that's what piqued my interest. And then I think I was in Seattle. I was either in Seattle or Vancouver. I can't remember which one it was, but I found a retro game store there and they had a copy of D on PlayStation and I picked it up. And then I picked up the limited run game. Limited run games did a release of D. So I think I picked up the PC version of that.
you have the
So
long box PS1.
yeah. No, it was no box. It was just the discs, unfortunately. So and even just the discs were a bit pricey. So I was just like, okay, I was like, I'm gonna have to live with it. I don't always buy the full in-box games. Like if I really want a game and I can only find the disc itself or the cartridge, I'll bite the bullet on that.
Yeah,
So and D was one of those ones I just really wanted in my collection, so I added it that day, which was cool.
there is a sequel, D2.
D2?
It came out for the Dreamcast.
I
Uh,
believe so, yeah.
it's a totally different game though. It plays like Tomb Raider, but you have a gun. When you go to shoot the aliens, it goes to like first person mode.
Hmm.
But you also have like an inventory screen, like it's trying to be Resident Evil. It's just a weird. They were trying to just throw stuff at the wall at that point.
I think they were trying to take advantage of the success of Resident Evil. That's what it would sound like. And that's kind of how I felt when I played Clock Tower 3 on PlayStation 2. When I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, this isn't Clock Tower. It's a third person, adventure game.
Yep.
I still played all the way through it and enjoyed it, but it lacked what Clock Tower had. Okay, cool. So D and Enemy Zero, good choices. The first one that popped up in my head when I thought about story puzzlers was obviously the one that I sent you in parentheses, which I thought would be a good way to explain it, is Myst, and not just Myst itself, but the entire series. Because Myst wound up with I don't even know how many games, but there was Myst, Riven, Myst 3 Exile, Myst Uru, and then all the way up to PS4-ish was Abduction, which was another one in the Myst series,
Yeah.
which I did play through. And I actually have some of them. I don't have an original copy of Myst. It's the one that I don't think I do. It's the one that's escaped me so far. But I do have a copy. I do have a copy of Riven. I don't have the long boxes, unfortunately, but I got a copy of them. And these were all, I believe I got all of these at Long Island Retro Gaming Expo.
Nice.
There was a guy selling PC games, and I just grabbed them all. So I got a copy of Myst 3,
Yep.
and then I got a copy of Myst 2. Now the original Myst I do have on console. I have a couple of console versions of it. It's one of those games that it doesn't bother me to own multiple copies on different consoles. It's come out on so many different consoles,
Yeah, it
but
has.
obviously the original PC ones are the ones that I really enjoyed. And to this day, the only one in the series that I've completed fully is Abduction,
Oh, really?
and I did that on Steam. I have the entire Myst collection on Steam as well because Humble Bundle did a sale for all of them. So I grabbed them all. So I have them on Steam and I can play them whenever I want. But the only one I have completed is Abduction, which was the newest one. But I love the concept of them. Myst was like, you're walking around an island, you're trying to you're solving puzzles and getting parts of the story as you're solving the puzzles. Just that whole concept of it. Like that really opened me up to story puzzlers in a way. This was probably the second game I played after Seventh Guest, and it was the first one that I had to put down because I couldn't figure out. I got to a point where I just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, navigating the landscape in that game. is not only the biggest source of frustration, but it's the biggest. It's definitely the biggest challenge. But it's also like it's one of those games. I spent hours and hours and hours on that game, but I couldn't tell you what the plot of Myst is. You
Mhm.
know, um, but yeah, I think Riven is probably the better. I don't know. I would argue Riven is probably the best of the series.
Well, Riven definitely improved on what Myst, obviously the struggles that Myst had. I just, yeah, I also remember like how slow going it was when you were clicking on where to go and just all of that. So I definitely, yeah, there were definitely issues with it. Riven, yeah, Riven felt like it was put together better. They learned whatever issues they had on the first one, and they made their fixes. And then in terms of like gameplay, I feel like they got progressively better. Like I've touched all of them, but Abduction's the only one I actually made it all the way through. And I don't know if it had gotten to a point where like they either simplified it or I just matured enough where I was just like, you know what? I go, my brain can handle this now. So now that I have them all in my collection, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I need to go back and just play through the whole series.
Yeah, I've never played Abduction. Played Myst, Riven, and a little bit of Exile.
Mm. Abduction is cool. I recommend it if if you have a Steam account. It's not that expensive.
Yeah, I'll give it a rip. Um,
Cool. All right, what's next on your list?
it's a good question. I'm looking at my list right now.
Ah,
I'm thinking I'm going to go with another pair of games.
okay.
This time it's going to be Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. Uh,
Ico, I've always wanted to play. I've never played Ico.
yeah, same developer. Yeah, just both of the stories are similar, right? It's like you're looking for your loved one, and in order to do it, you have to, in Ico, it's a lot of platforming and stuff. Shadow of the
Hmm.
Colossus, you have to bring down all these Colossus, Colossi. Is that the correct word for that?
I guess it would be, right? I mean, it wouldn't be Colossuses.
Yeah,
Yeah, go with Colossi.
yeah, Colossi, and they're just a pair of games that you can get into. The art style in those games is fantastic. I'm
Hmm.
not going to talk about the Last Guardian. That's sort of the third game, if you will, in that sort of, but it's new enough to where it's not retro.
Yeah.
But definitely recommended, and you can pick them up pretty cheap. Once again, challenging, definitely pretty challenging. Uh,
I remember getting Shadow of the Colossus for PS4 because I didn't play it on the original PS2. And I was floored with, well, first off, on the PS4 it looked beautiful, but I was just stunned by how invested I was in the game and trying to figure out. And you're right, every Colossus in the game is its own puzzle.
exactly. Yeah, they each have their own nuance on how you take them down.
Hmm. Yep. I don't know. And it's funny about that one. Like, in my head, I wouldn't necessarily consider it a story puzzler because there is some action involved in it. Like, there is a bit of hacking and slashing at points.
Yeah,
But it does have like majority of the elements I think that fall in that category. And Ico, like I said, is one of those games where it's been in my it's been in my periphery, but I've never played it.
yeah. I mean, it's a gray area game, but to me, it's got the story and it's got the puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can argue it's oh, you do a bit of hacking with a sword, okay, but um,
Yeah. All
Ico,
right.
there's pretty much no. I don't think there's any real hacking involved. It's mostly just platforming.
All right. Cool. All right. So those are two other games. I'm gonna hit you back with two games, and it'll be the one that I actually mentioned earlier that I posted a playthrough for. And I have my original copies sitting right here, and I brought them up before. And we're talking about the seventh guest and the 11th hour. And you'll see actually behind me is a full boxed copy of the game that I also grabbed at the expo one year. Once I saw somebody had the long box, I had to grab it because I don't have the long boxes for these anymore. But these are the original two that I got. And what I love about these games, and you can look at the playthrough on YouTube, the horror element of it. Huge horror fan as a kid, growing up horror. So when Seventh Guest came out, and it was essentially a horror story about what happened to the six guests that went into Henry Stoff's mansion, and then who was the seventh guest. Like that was the mystery of it all. But all of these people went into the mansion and died and or disappeared, and you're trying to figure out what happened. And the way that you reveal the story is you go into rooms and you solve a puzzle, and then you get a full motion video sequence. And I just love the way this game unfolded because depending on the order in which you solve the puzzles, you have to some of them are locked away and you have to get to a certain level before you can access them. But you didn't like there wasn't a specific order you needed to get all of them done in. So as you went along, depending on the order you did the puzzles, the story unfolded in snippets and out of order. So you would put it to, you'd have to figure out exactly what happened until you get to the ending and then, you get your big reveal. But I thought the puzzles in them were really challenging, really unique. I thought that the visuals in the game were beautiful. Like the mansion itself, I thought looked amazing. The full motion video, as you would think back then in the early 90s, was not good.
No.
The acting over the top, but in that cheesy D movie kind of like D horror movie, or you can say B horror movie. I feel like this was C or D,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
just really really fun. And then 11th Hour kind of revisited it, but they did something a little bit what I thought was kind of clever. You get like a notebook, and when I'm talking about a notebook, you remember those little like flip notebooks with the keyboard on them,
yeah,
like
yeah,
that type of notebook. So you're given one of those when you go in the house to communicate with somebody outside who's trying to help you navigate. And so as you're in the house this time around in the mansion, going through it, you're solving a new set of puzzles. But as you solve them on your notebook, it'll release another video of the story of you as an investigative reporter, like leading up to how you came to the house and then getting the story as it unfolds there. So it was a nice, different way to tell a story in the same location.
yeah,
And that one offered multiple endings. There were three endings to it. So when you got to the end, you got to choose which ending you thought was the right ending. One was right, and two would lead to your demise. So again, just another really cool spin on it that I loved.
yeah. I like that a lot. Definitely the location tie-in is definitely cool.
Yeah. Did you ever play either of these games?
I played the seventh guest a little bit ages ago. I don't
Hmm.
think I ever beat it or played it fully through. One of those games that was just at my buddy's house. We popped it in one day.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely one I highly recommend. And recently, and I brought this up, like recently somebody did a Kickstarter and they did another sequel called The 13th Doll, and they actually got the original actor to come back and play Henry Stoff. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
And then they just released on PSVR 2, and I don't know if it's Oculus. I would assume it would be Oculus, but they released the seventh guest in VR.
Okay.
So it still seems to come around to current times, which is kind of cool. It shows that like I guess the impact that the game had back in its day when it first came out.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool experience to experience that in VR.
Yeah, I want to play it in VR. The problem is I'm not going to buy a PSVR 2 for it because they've already stopped supporting it.
Yeah,
So if it was on regular PSVR, I would buy it because I have that, but it's only VR 2.
interesting.
Yeah.
Your
So,
choice.
yeah. All right. What's up on your, what's next on yours?
Um, I'm gonna go with the Quest for Glory series. Uh,
Okay.
there's 5 games, I believe, and each one is its own sort of caricature of a certain genre. So the first one is So You Want to Be a Hero. It's like, you know, high fantasy kind of deal. The second one is Trial by Fire. It's got like an Arabian Nights kind of feel to it. The third one is like tribal African type of deal. And the fourth one, I think I mentioned this a while back, Shadows of Darkness is like an Eastern European, you know, you're in Moldavia, you know, the Baba Yaga is real. Um, it's third person. There's a lot of walking around and interacting with different NPCs and things like that, but there's also a lot of puzzle solving, and
Okay.
there are things that you can miss that affect your story later on to where you get kind of bad endings. Um, Highly recommended, and I think I mentioned before that Shadows of Darkness was the first one to have voiceover, and they were going for the Boris Karloff kind of feel.
Oh, cool.
So definitely recommended. They were all good. The Arabian Nights one was pretty good too. Trial by Fire.
Okay. What kind of I'm not familiar with these games. What format were they? Was it like a first person or like how did it play?
It's third person.
It's third person.
It's a Sierra game, so they play like I don't know. You can take a look when you get a second, but third person, point and click. So you click over here, your guy will walk over. You go to the edge of the screen, and now you're in a different setting. So
Got it.
um, you click on things to interact with them. Again, this could be a point and click thing, but the story is there. But you need to solve puzzles to progress the narrative.
All right. Cool.
Definitely recommended. Um, so Quest for Glory, I think there's another version of it called So You Want to Be a Hero. Uh,
Okay.
and I don't know if that was a licensing deal or that they just called that in a different country. I'm not entirely sure.
Uh Beats me. That one I definitely don't know. All right, cool. Good series of games that I have no knowledge of. So I gotta do some digging on that one and see if that's something I would definitely want to play through. Um, the next one on my list, I remember playing this when I was younger, but I didn't play much of it. And then I bought it again on I want to say Steam or PS4 or something like that. But and this one goes back to 1998. It was created by LucasArts, Grim Fandango.
Oh,
Did you
it's
ever
on my
play Grim
list too.
Fandango?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's on
that's
my.
on your list. Let me tell you something. It took a while for us to get to one that we both have, which is great. But the setting for this game to me was just so clever and different, and the story itself, just this whole film noirish kind of, detective agency thing going on in the land of the dead. Like everything about it to me, it was quirky, it was different, it was challenging. Visually, I honestly like visually stunning to me. And for those of you who have never played this game, LucasArts put out a good series of games for a while. Like they were really like they weren't afraid to kind of like take chances and go out and be a little different with their stuff. So, and I just loved this game, and I loved Manny, the protagonist. I loved the way he interacted with people. Like it was that,
Yep.
like I said, it was that he was snarky, he was, yeah, just like everything about it, everything about this game to me was just so much fun. And the puzzles were really challenging, like trying to find the items you needed in order to access the next area and things like that, as you were trying to solve the overall mystery in the game was just super fun.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned it, but the art style, the whole like Mexican themed, like
Yep.
Dia de los Muertos
Yep.
style. Blast me in the comments. I'm not sure what it's called, but it was excellent. Um, and yeah, like Monkey Island too was another LucasArts game that came out about the
Yep.
same. Yeah, they weren't afraid to push the envelope. Um, Grim
Nope.
Fandango was definitely, I would say, the pinnacle of their games in the '90s.
Oh, I think so by far. I think it was the best. And actually, Maniac Mansion, which I did not put on my list, was also another one that I really loved from LucasArts. But yeah, but Grim Fandango definitely probably in my top, yeah, probably like top three for these types of games. Definitely worth playing through. And it's a type of game I would go back and play through multiple times just because experiencing, just going through the entire game, like the experience of it is so much fun.
And in games like that too, it's easy to miss certain dialogue. Um,
Yes.
you don't talk to certain people, you don't get those interactions. So
Hmm.
definitely one of those games you want to go through twice, at least twice.
Yeah, and it's available. And the other thing about that one too, it's available on PS4, Xbox One. It's on the Switch. Like you can purchase it and play through it. So this isn't a hard game to get a hold of. So anybody who hasn't played Grim Fandango, highly recommend that.
Limited Run did just put it out for the Switch and the PS5.
Oh, okay, there you go.
It may not be available anymore. You may be paying scalpers prices. So
Oh, bummer. Oh, well,
Just
for the limited run copy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You can
but
get the OG for about the same amount of money.
oh, see, well, that's what I would do. All right, well, we'll check Grim Fandango off your list. Do you have anything else on yours?
I have a controversial one in that'll wrap things up for me.
Okay.
Um, System Shock.
Oh, System Shock.
First and foremost, it's a first person shooter, right?
Okay.
But the story behind it, you're a hacker. You hack into Trioptimum, which is this evil corporation. You get caught doing so. The guy running the show says, hey, if you remove the ethical restraints from our security system, we'll give you this sick neural implant, which you do. It wasn't really a question. It's like, do this or we're going to kill you type deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the implant, you do the job. Turns out you have to convalesce for a year. When you wake up, everything is awful because the AI that you remove the ethical restraints from now has a god complex and wants to kill all humans.
Okay.
If you haven't played it, the AI's name is Shodan, and Shodan will berate you the entire time over the intercom. Like, oh, you're trying to open that door, you puny human. I'm going to send my cyborgs to come and take care of you. You better just don't even try.
Nice.
Um, it's the first game I remember a first person shooter having just a really in depth menu. So the whole bottom of the screen is just things that your inventory, things that you can do. But when you're not bashing a cyborg with a lead pipe, you're interacting with terminals, you're trying to solve puzzles, you're at a certain point in the game, you have to go into the internet. You know,
Okay.
it's like a VR representation of yourself. Um, Really cool game. Really well thought out. The sequel was pretty good too, but the OG is definitely up there for me.
Yeah. System Shock is one of those games that, again, I know of it. I've never played it. And and it definitely sounds like something that I would want to play. So good one to bring up. And also like I like when people are on the show and they bring up games that I wanted to play and I forget about them. So like this is a good reminder for me to
Yeah,
circle back on this.
they remastered it and re-released it on the PS5,
Oh,
and it was
nice.
and it was a game that was in development hell for about 15 years. I actually kickstarted it. Well, I didn't personally kickstart. I've supported the Kickstarter back in
Hmm.
I want to say like 2015, and
Okay.
it was released last year. So
All right. So then it is out and available for anybody who wants to play it, which is great. All
yep.
right. So System Shock's your last one. My last one's not is kind of on the cusp of retro and modern, depending on what you consider retro. I always go retro if it's been over 15 years. I feel like it falls into retro. So this one's kind of right on the cusp. And it's a series of games. Three of them came out, but the first one came out in 2009 on the Nintendo DS. I didn't play it until I got it on PlayStation 4, but the original title is called 999, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. And it's part of the Zero Escape series, also known as the Nonary games. And what made this interesting, somebody I knew recommended it to me because it's kind of like an escape the room game, but there's a whole story element to it. And when you escape the room, and it's a series of rooms you have to escape. And as you're escaping the rooms, more of the story unfolds. And the whole story is there are 9 different people in this place. They're all trapped in this place, and you're trying to find your way out. And it's a branching storyline element that goes on as you solve puzzles and you start interacting with different people. You get to choose what you're going to do. So, like, you may get faced in a situation where it's like, oh, it's like there are 3 different ways. There are 3 different ways to go here. Who do you want to go with? And depending on which way you go, it'll change up like what the experience is going to be. And the object is to obviously ultimately escape the situation. And if you make the wrong choices in certain situations, you wind up dying. And it leads ultimately to like 5 or 6. I'm looking at the description now. There are 6 different endings in the game. So you can play through it multiple times and get a different story
Yep.
depending on who you interact with when. And I just thought this was so um I thought this was so well done because it reminded me of those choose your own adventure books when you were a kid,
Yeah.
but just, a video game version of it. And so I really fell in love with this one. Um, and then I wound up playing the other two, which were Zero Time Dilemma, Zero Escape. I'm sorry, Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Reward, Zero Time Dilemma. Weren't as good as the first one, but it was the same format, so I still enjoyed them. But definitely one of those games where I kind of got caught off guard. I was very surprised by, and I really couldn't put it down. So that's definitely for anybody who likes those like escape the room types games. If you want something with a really cool story mixed with it, I would look up Zero Escape for the DS or get the trilogy called the Nonary games on PS4, PS5.
Yeah, it sounds cool. By that time in my life, I wasn't really doing any, handheld gaming, so I missed it, but
Yeah.
it definitely sounds like a game I would play.
Yeah, I was not like me again. I've said it a million times on the show. Like I'm not a handheld gamer. I've never been. It just never worked out for me. But getting these handheld games on like actual, current consoles and stuff like that, I'm all in for stuff like that. So yeah, this is definitely one to check out. And that also completes my list. So I think we
Excellent.
both we both had a very healthy, diverse list, which was cool. There was only one overlap, which I'm surprised with, but a good overlap nonetheless. So yeah,
Yeah,
just a
very,
really yeah
very
really cool.
diverse. Yeah,
Yeah, very diverse, and I like that. I like that. I like when people come on the show and offer up games that I'm not going to talk about, which or just that I don't have on my list. So it's really fun. And for those of you out there that are watching or listening, like if story puzzlers are your thing, would love to hear either some recommendations, some other, some things we didn't mention, or if you played anything that we did mention, would love to hear your experiences with some of these games. And again, most importantly, what did we leave off? That's really awesome because as gamers, we would definitely love to hear that as well. And you guys can reach out on Facebook.com/Retro Gamers Podcast, on Instagram, Blue Sky at Retro Gamers Podcast. You can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube at Retro Gamers Podcast. You can watch us on Spotify as well at Retro Gamers Podcast, or you can email at theretrogamers.com. Uh, John, again, this was really fun talking about this. And when we come back, we're going to talk game of the week and then close out the show. All right, John. Well, thanks again for joining me this week. Really appreciate it. And before you go, I always do this segment, which is game of the week. I know I am behind on my game of the weeks. In fact, I'm two behind. You're about to make me three behind in terms of catching up on live streaming, but I don't want to let it slide. So tell me what this week's game of the week is going to be.
all right. Well, prepare to have your expectations subverted. Um, this game I have for you is Lord of the Rings themed.
Okay.
Uh,
I love Lord of the Rings.
it started in 1994 and has been online since then continuously.
Okay.
It is called the Two Towers Mud. And for those of you who don't know, a MUD is a multi-user domain. It can be found at t2tmud.org. Um, basically, just log in. You make a character. It's all text based. Um,
Ooh, I like that.
so create your character. You create your pick a race, pick a class, and you're in the game. Excuse me.
Okay.
It plays kind of like Zork, but it's a game that you can pop into and pop out of, and the next day pop right back in and be good to go.
So when you pop back in, is it completely different?
No.
Okay. So same story.
Yeah, excuse me. I've got a dust or something.
All
Um,
right.
you collect equipment and gold and all that good stuff. So when you log off, log back in, you're exactly where you ended the game last time with your equipment.
Oh, okay, great. All right, that sounds good. So, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, Mud, and you said T2 Games?
T2tmud.org.
T2tmud.org. All right, that's definitely the first that's definitely the first kind of game I've been ever given to play, like a mud game. Haven't played one of those in a very long time. So thank you for that. And then John, for people out there who are watching and listening, where can they find you and follow you?
You can go to my website, crerecycling.com. All of my contact info is there. If you want to email me or, you want to text me or call me, you can. If you have an interesting story or a specific part that you're looking for, we're kind of like the Ferris Bueller of e-waste if you are looking for something. Um, we're also going to be setting up at the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo again this year.
Very
So
nice.
if anybody's got a wish list of things that they want us to bring down, feel free to email me with that info.
All right, very cool. Well, again, one more time, thank you so much for joining. And then for everybody out there, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. We've been posting a lot more videos online, different retro birthdays, retro cheats, different playthroughs, and stuff like that. So you don't want to miss out on any of the content that we're throwing up there. Thank you so much, John, one more time.
You're
And
welcome.
for
Thanks, Anthony.
everybody, all right. And for everybody else out there, we will catch you next time on the Retro Gamers Podcast.